Hey everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be my March wrap-up. So I'm going to be reviewing the 4 books I finished this month, which 4 books is a very good number. It's just that I'm laughing because the last 2 months I had read so many more books, but I've been so incredibly busy and I'm proud that I actually was able to still do some reading. A lot of these were actually audiobooks because that is my #1 trick when you're too busy. You still have time to listen to books in the shower or as you're getting ready, so I finished 4 books, very happy. So the first one that I finished was An American Marriage, and this was part of my Goodreads reading challenge that I'm doing this year. If you don't know, at the beginning of the year, I'll try to link it down below. Let me know if I forget. It's basically, I'm reading a bunch of the winners of 2018 Goodreads Choice Award, where people were voting which ones were the best books for each categories. So I'm reading the winners or some of the runner-ups, and I will be voting at the end of the year which ones I think should have won each category. And this one was, I believe, fiction, just like straight up fiction. And I have to say, it is out of my comfort zone. It's more of a story about racism, justice, or injustice. And it was character-driven story between a couple who gets married. It's kind of their life stories and them having to go through her husband basically being accused of raping a woman, something he didn't do, and then just going through the consequences and how it's affecting their lives. And honestly, it was one of those books that actually makes you feel very sad. And I don't think I was at the right place to read it. I feel like it was just like bringing me down a little, and I've read a lot of sad books, I feel like, from this challenge actually since the beginning of the year, so I feel like it was like a bit like I struggled to finish it. It was a good book. I'm not sure if it's more my style because usually I'm more like a fantasy sci-fi person, especially more action driven over character driven. And I still enjoyed it, but my rating is usually based on my enjoyment. So I gave it 3.5 stars. So it's a solid book if that's something you are into. It was definitely heartbreaking. I definitely felt for the characters and I understand why it won. I will have to say at the end of the year if it is my winner for this category, but it was a really solid book. Oh, and the audiobook was also very good because I did listen to it as an audiobook. The second book that I finished this month was The Astonishing Color of After, which is a YA magical realism book. And I am not someone that likes magical realism. I didn't know that it was. That's why I went into it, just because it was a very popular YA book. And I was trying to just find something pretty easy to go through / listen to, because I did also listen to it as an audiobook, knowing I was so busy. And I still picked a book that was sad. Which honestly, like, why am I doing this to myself? I was not in the mood for sadness. I feel like it's the weather. It's been so dark that I'm like, I'm so over it. But it's a story about grief. A girl who is mixed race. Her mom is, I think she's Taiwanese, and her dad is white American. And she's never met her family, but she lost her mom. She's never met them. She doesn't even know how to speak Taiwanese or Mandarin, so there's also that barrier. And she keeps seeing this big red bird, which is like kind of like her mom. And although it's a beautiful grief story, again, magical realism isn't for me, so I understand why it's popular, just again, not really my jam. So I gave it 3.5 stars. This was a pretty big book, like 400 pages, so it was a really long audiobook, but yeah, not for me, but it's not a bad book for sure. Now, our big book of the month. If you don't know, every month I pick a big book from this cute little Harry Potter jar, and we read it together if you wish to do so. I have a page on Goodreads, we have a book club and everything, and this month we have picked The Secret History by Donna Tartt, and I was so scared of that book because, first off, it doesn't look like it in this edition, but it has over 600 pages, and it's like literary fiction, and I didn't know anything else about it. I was just kind of scared of the language. English is not my first language, so sometimes I'm kind of scared that it's going to be difficult. I don't feel like it was difficult at all. I did listen to it also, most of it, as an audiobook too, just because, again, did not have time to sit down and read a book at all. And I have to say, I have very complicated feelings about this book, and I feel like it's something that you have to put down and think about for a long time before you know what to say about it. So I would love to talk about it in the comment section if you have read it, What I didn't know was that it was a group of students in university, and they're kind of a little pretentious, and they definitely are, and they're studying like old dead languages like Greek, Latin, and everything, so kind of goes with that whole image. And you're following someone that's a bit more normal, that kind of gets to be in that group of like very selected students. And then there's a murder, and you kind of have to follow them through it. I have to say that this book was so different than what I expected. I didn't even know a lot, but the language is beautiful. It's not too complicated. I didn't dislike the audiobook. The audiobook was actually narrated by the author. It's just that I kind of wish it had been a man, since you're following the main character who is a man. And I feel like even though the main character, wasn't really pretentious, I kind of wish it was like a man with an accent that was a little pretentious. I feel like it would have made it even better. But it's a very atmospheric, character-driven book. And you kind of see them struggle through everything that happens, and it's so hard to talk about it without spoiling it, but I don't want to spoil it. The only thing I can say that I didn't love about it is that whenever things happened, I felt quite detached by the whole thing. Like, detached from the characters, detached from, you know, the person being killed. It kind of starts a little like that, and then you kind of learn what happened. And yeah, I was feeling detached is the best way of describing it. So I have, again, very complicated feelings about this book. I am not sure how to rate this. I think it's going to be something like, I'm rounding it up to a 4-star on Goodreads, but it's probably a 3.5, 3.75 most likely. And yeah, I will need to think about this more because there's just so much that happens. It's very, very atmospheric though, and I understand why people that, for example, if you usually like classics, and you want like a little bit of a murder mystery, not really mystery, murder twist to it, I can definitely see that why you would enjoy this. So yeah, super complicated, but that's kind of how I feel about it. I feel like I finished it just a few days ago, so I'm still kind of brewing my thoughts. And then last but not least, I was hoping I would have time to finish it, and I finished it literally this morning. The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This is a huge, huge chunk of a book. It's like 835 pages or something. I did read it as an ebook because, again, I was so busy, so I wanted to be able to be on the go / if I had pre-ordered it, I would have not been able to read it this month. So this is an adult fantasy book, and let's settle and let me try to kind of describe it for you. In this fantasy world, you're following a bunch of different people. There's actually 4 different main point of view, which I felt like ended up being quite overwhelming because, you know, in the beginning you kind of introduce each point of view, and you have to like get situated with the characters and wherever they are on the map in the world and everything, and it got to be a lot, to be honest. But in this world, basically what's happening is that every 1,000 years there's like a huge battle between bad dragons basically and good dragons, and then everyone that is in between. And the day is approaching for that 1,000 years, and they're trying to prevent the apocalypse basically. There is some magic, which there's also some LGBTQ plus romance, and it was overall a really good story. I feel like there was a good amount of world building, and I would love for more stories in this world because it is a standalone, which I feel like there's not enough fantasy standalone, so that's probably why it was so big. But I always struggled to describe the positive. I feel like describing what bothers me or what was the weaknesses of a book is like easier for you to decide if that's something that will bother you or not. I don't know why. I will work on that if that's an issue. But even though I liked, you know, magical system and all those things, the weaknesses in my opinion in the writing were the fact that a few characters will die. Obviously, it's like the underworld, so it's gonna happen. It's not a spoiler. It just, I felt like in the writing, it kind of felt a bit, I felt detached too. Like, it felt like, oh, boom, he dies. And you're like, oh, okay. And, like, you move on. And I'm like, okay. Like, it just felt a bit weak. Don't know how else to describe it. And I also felt like the battles, like any physical altercation, were kind of just the weakest points too in the writing. Again, I don't know if anyone else felt that. And like I was saying, the fact that there's like 4 main point of view, so I felt like it became quite overwhelming and just exhausting. At the end of the book, I felt exhausted. At page like 500 and something, I kind of eventually put the book down for a while, and I was busy, but I also felt quite overwhelmed by the story, and I was like, okay, this is getting a bit too long. But overall, I really enjoyed the story, even though it might not sound like it. And I totally want more from this world for sure. Like, I'm really hoping for like spin-off series or something, because the magic system is very intriguing too. So overall, I'm giving this a 4-star, which is very solid. It's the best rated book this month, and I totally recommend it if you're looking for more fantasy books to read, because it's a big book and there are dragons. Damn, that's like by far the shortest wrap-up I've done in a while. But it happens. So please let me know in the comment section if you have read any of these books, so we can discuss them in the comment section. And also let me know the best books you have read this month, because I always want more recommendations. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe, because you will not want to miss any future videos. And I will be putting some on the screen that I recommend you check out. And I will see you in my next one. Bye.